And welcome to our Wisconsin 2025 season preview here on the OHIO podcast. Chris, boy, oh boy, our good buddy Luke Fickle from Second and Seven, the good friend of my cousin Ryan Miller, went from Cincinnati to Madison, Wisconsin, and things have just been rough for old Fick.
Yeah, man, it's not been good. I think he's a way better coach than what the performance at Wisconsin is showing. Um, I really wanted to see him succeed here, but yeah, I felt from the outgo that this was a bad fit for Luke Fickle. I really did. Did not think this was the program that he was going to come to glory in. And I'm not just saying that because I'd love to see him be back at Ohio State on the sidelines at some point. Um, I just think that, you know, Wisconsin, first of all, they got away from their identity. They were a ground and pound team. And I understand what they were trying to do with this air raid offense, but I feel like it backfired so badly. They didn't have the proper personnel to really run that, I don't believe. And, I feel like it's not who Luke Fickle is, it's not who Wisconsin is. So I don't know. I look at this schedule, Eric, and I think to myself, even though he got an extension, I kind of feel like there's a chance that Luke Fickle may not finish the season.
Mm.
And I hope I'm wrong.
Well, we bring on Rajeev from the Bucky Report. He's going to dive into all of that for us. He's a great guy, great interview. It's a phenomenal interview. You all are going to love that. So we're not going to steal from any of that portion of the interview. Let's just dive right into some of the history of Wisconsin and how they performed last year in 2024. So Wisconsin is 744 wins to 519 losses and 53 ties all time. They have a very good bowl record at 19 and 16. They have won the old Big Ten Conference 14 times. They play their home games in Camp Randall, which seats 85,458 there, located in Madison, Wisconsin. This is year number 3 for Luke Fickle. He's got a record of 13 and 13 overall. Last year in 2024, he was 5 and 7, 3 and 6 in the conference, with non-con wins over Western Michigan and South Dakota, a non-conference loss at home to Bama. He had wins against Purdue, Rutgers, and Northwestern, which are 3 schools you should win against if you're at Purdue. But then losses against USC, Penn State, Iowa, Oregon, Nebraska, and Minnesota. Those last 2 being Nebraska and Minnesota were tough to take on the chin if you are a Wisconsin fan. Last year, Vegas said 7 wins was the over under. Chris, we both felt confident in taking the over, but barely at 8 and 4. Chris, we were both incorrect in our prediction, but as I recall, we both said probably want to stay away from that, and we were correct
Yeah,
in saying stay away. Should have should have taken the under.
yeah. It was it was something, Eric, that that was something that I just don't know. Last year surprised me a little. I really did think they were better than that, but hi Mika. We're actually recording a preview right now.
I'm letting her know right now.
That's okay. Just hang with us for a second. I'm gonna restart that, Eric, so that we can.
Okay.
So yeah, Eric. Last year to me was a bit of a disappointment. I really thought that Wisconsin was going to be a better team than that. I thought that the air raid offense was something that maybe was going to bring a little more excitement to the team, and it just felt uncomfortable. It looked uncomfortable at times, and unfortunately for Fick, it was a season that didn't result in a bowl win or a bowl appearance, and hopefully they can get that turned around this season. But as I look at that schedule, I just don't see how.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. All right, let's not waste any more time. Let's bring on Rajeev, our good friend from the Bucky Report, our sister podcast on the College Huddle. Great guy, very knowledgeable dude about Wisconsin, and I think he's going to have a very interesting take that you all are going to really appreciate when it comes from a Wisconsin fan about Luke Fickell and where they are at in their program. So, hanging tight. Enjoy this interview. Chris and I will be right back, and we're going to give you our prediction for the Badgers in 2025. And welcoming into the OHIO podcast is Rajeev from our sister podcast at the College Huddle, the Bucky Report. Rajeev, welcome to OHIO podcast, my friend.
Always a pleasure to be on with you, bud.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this. You are fantastic, my friend. I love what you guys do over there at the Bucky Report, and this is one of those teams that not only me but a lot of Ohio State fans have a lot of invested interest in with Luke Fickell, and so this preview out of all of them in the Big Ten will probably get a very heavy Ohio State viewership simply because of that. So I'm interested to kind of get your perspective. So let's go to the end of last year. Bring us up to speed. Where is the pulse of this fan base with this team, this program, and looking into going into, I think, what, year number 3 under Fick?
You're number 3 under Fick. It's a very cautious fan base right now. Obviously, last year we ended a 22 plus year bowl streak, which is something that Badger fans hung their hat on, right? I mean, we were one of the most consistent programs in all of the country for the last 20 years. And that ended last year in flames. I mean, we lost our last 5 games. We lost all of our rivalry games. Iowa and Minnesota outscored us like 66-17. I mean, it was just an unbelievable, horrible season for Badger fans. Obviously, it all started in week 3 against Alabama when our transfer quarterback Tyler Van Dyke tore his ACL. And it really put us in a bind. Braden Locke just simply wasn't up to the task to be a Big Ten quarterback. He's no longer with us now. He's in Arizona. And yeah, I mean, that just kind of started a tailspin. We had a little bit of a stretch in the season. We beat Purdue, Rutgers, Northwestern. We were kind of happy about what we were seeing on the field. But at the end of the day, we were just too small up front defensively. We didn't have good quarterback play. We would have beat Oregon with any kind of good quarterback play, but we didn't have that. And because of that, we ended up losing our bowl streak, which is a killer for Badger fans. And it ended up costing Phil Longo, our offense coordinator, his job. Now we bring in Jeff Grimes, and there's a bit more of a resurgence and a bit more of a return to Wisconsin's identity. But yeah, as far as the fan base right now, very, very cautious. The schedule is brutal. We're looking for improvement on the field and advancement of kind of our trajectory. From a recruiting perspective, Fickell's done a great job. I mean, that's not a surprise to Ohio State fans. Like, he's a very good recruiter. We had a really good 24 class, really good 25 class, and the 26 class is okay right now. But he's got to translate it to the field, and that's the big question: is can he do that? I'm hoping that he can, but with the schedule is going to be very, very difficult.
Um, I was listening to some, I guess I'll say, national perspective on Wisconsin. And the host that I was listening to said that it is of his opinion that Wisconsin has an identity crisis. I thought it was interesting that you used the word return to identity there. Is that a fair statement? And what is the identity of this team moving forward? And was there an identity crisis?
There was, and I think that honestly, when Fickell got hired on, it was really more of, okay, we were going to try to change the identity. We were going to evolve into a more modern air raid offense, which is why he brought in Phil Longo. But it just didn't work. And the bottom line is that's not Wisconsin football. When we lose the ability to run the ball and stop the run, you can't win in this conference, first of all, if you can't do that. And we prioritize trying to go after transfer quarterbacks, trying to evolve our offense, and it just didn't work. So we are, with the Jeff Grimes hire, he runs that. He was at Kansas for a few years. He was at Baylor before that. He has that power run in his offensive system. And frankly, that excites a lot of Badger fans because we were really good with that identity and that smash mouth Big Ten football. We're going to return to that, but with a modern twist. So he runs a lot of mesh. He runs a lot of over the middle routes. He's really good at adapting his system to the players he has and to the defense. And I think that that's really going to change now. And we are returning a bit more to our identity. We really struggled running the ball. We really struggled with anything up the middle. And that's just not how Wisconsin can win. I mean, that's how not how the players in our state and the recruits that we have are built. We have to be able to run the ball, and I think that's the biggest thing that's going to change coming into this year. So yeah, we definitely had an identity crisis, and I think that I talked to many people last year, and it was like we look like we've given up our identity and that we're lost, and now we're kind of returning back to form.
Is there without diving too deep into the weeds of schedule and looking ahead, is there a certain number that Badger fans feel Luke Fickell needs to hit in order for him to still be there in 2026?
There's a lot of people that believe no matter what he hits, he's going to be here for 4 years because of his contract and buyout stuff. I think he really needs to show progression of some kind. I think he needs to have a 6-6 season, which I think is doable, even though we have a very difficult schedule. But in all reality, if he's 5-7 and the team looks even a little bit better, I think he's going to keep his job. Chris McIntosh, really our athletic director, kind of went out on a limb by hiring Luke Fickell when a lot of people wanted Jim Leonard to stay on. He was our defensive coordinator at the time when Paul Chryst got fired, and people wanted him to get the job. He was our interim because he kind of maintained that like strong defense, Wisconsin mentality. So it was a big swing with Luke Fickell. Obviously, the success at Cincinnati, shows that he can take a team to the playoff, but it just hasn't materialized yet. So I actually don't really think. I mean, his seat is warm and hot for sure, but it's not like he has to win 6 or 7 games to do this because the recruiting has been so strong that in 2026 our schedule gets a lot easier, and then that's really the year I feel like he has to prove his ability to actually win on the field.
Makes sense. Okay. Well, let's transition to a little bit. You've mentioned some of the turnover and the coaching staff, which is important. But let's go ahead and look at a little bit of the projected starters in the roster here. And since we've talked a lot about the offense, let's just go ahead and start there. Who's going to be the signal caller in 2025?
That's Billy Edwards, transfer from Maryland. He is definitely a breath of fresh air for Badger fans at this point because Braden Locke played so poorly last year. We had Tanner Mordecai 2 years ago, and then he got injured, so Braden Locke had to come in. Last year, Tyler Van Dyke came in. He tore his ACL. Billy Edwards has played in the conference. He played in Maryland. Now, it wasn't a great season for him, but he actually did pretty well given the very poor offensive line that Maryland had last year. And he can move. He's very mobile quarterback, which Jeff Grimes really likes. He can make all the throws. And ultimately, he provides a little bit more of that kind of like two-way weapon where he can use his feet. He likes to use his feet to create passing lanes. And with the receiving core that we have and some of the other weapons, I feel like we're going to be successful. But having the Big Ten experience and a guy who's seen the teams on our schedule and played against the teams on our schedule, that's really going to be, it's going to provide us such a huge lift because frankly, the players around him are simply better at Wisconsin than they were at Maryland.
You mentioned some of the weapons that are going to be around him. Let's talk receivers and tight end. There's going to be a name on here that Ohio State fans are going to be very familiar with. He's a Northeast Ohio kid, Jaden Ballard. I assume he's going to be one of the starters at wide receiver. And then you got some guys who've been there before. So let's talk receiving and tight ends.
Yeah, so the number one guy on our list is Vinny Anthony. He was a leading receiver last year. He kind of burst onto the scene last year. We were expecting Will Pauling to have the best year last year, but he didn't have a good season. He's now at Notre Dame, I believe. But Vinny Anthony had just short of shy of 700 yards, 4 touchdowns. Really was our top wide receiver. Great hands, great ability to stretch the field. You couple that with Jaden Ballard, who I know never really got into the rotation at Ohio State, but his skills and his speed, they're just
he's
there.
Fast, man. He's fast.
He's super fast. And I feel like, look, he wants to prove himself, right? He couldn't get on the field at Ohio State. He comes to Wisconsin. He has something to prove. And so he's going to be our starting guy on the other boundary. And then in the slot, we've got Trechka Kahuna, who originally transferred but then came back. He was a guy coming out of high school that Badger fans, myself included, were just super high on. Played at Bishop Gorman here in Las Vegas. Really, really good separation ability. He has a lot of yards after catch ability, very quick. And in the Jeff Grimes system, the slot is extremely important. And he runs a lot of mesh routes, a lot of different kinds of schemes to get the slots and the tight ends open. So I think Tretch Kahuna is going to have a really big season for us. And then tight end, originally we were going to have Tanner Koziel, the transfer out of Ball State, who had 90 plus receptions last year, an unbelievable season. But he transferred out after the spring. Why we have two transfer portals, I don't know. But he's now at Houston. So we're going back to the guy that played last year, Tucker Ashcraft, who, from what we've heard and seen in spring, he did take a bit of a step. So he'll be the starting tight end. But there's a lot of youth in that room, Grant Steck and other freshmen that could potentially get up there and make waves. But the depth at wide receiver is pretty decent. We've got, so we talked about the starters there. We've also got a guy like Chris Brooks, who's pretty decent. And again, it could come onto the scene. Tyrell Henry, transfer out of Michigan State, who he's with us right now for the second year. He'll back up Tretch Kahuna at the slot. And then we got a new guy, Deckel Crowdis out of Hawaii. Not necessarily the greatest receiver, but another, like Jaden Ballard, just tons of speed. And his ability to stretch the field is going to be really key. So there are some weapons there. Anthony and Ballard, though, are the key ones.
Well, if we're going to return to Wisconsin identity, it's going to be running the football, which means we need to know about who's going to be toting the rock and who are the big uglies up front blocking for him.
And this is one of those. So we've got the strength of our team is the running back room at this point. And that's led by Dylan Jones and Darian Dupree, both in the same class. And they're going to be sophomores this year. Dylan Jones looks to be kind of like that every down back, very strong, very quick to the hole. Darian Dupree, more of a weapon out of the backfield. We've got Cade Yakimelli, a guy that averaged 8.3 yards per carry last year, but only got like 40 carries. We don't understand that. But so there's a lot of weapons there and a lot of talent in that room. The issue, if there is one offensively, it's the offensive line. In theory, it's good, but our starting left tackle, Kevin Haywood, tore his ACL in the spring. And that was a killer for us because he was a true freshman last year. He was going to be a true sophomore this year, and he will play on Sundays. There's no doubt that Kevin Haywood is that kind of a guy. But you lose your starting left tackle, then everything's got to move around. We didn't really have a good backup left tackle. So now the question is, do we kick out our starting guard, Joe Brunner, who's going to be a senior, over to left tackle and then bring in some transitional guys into the middle? Or we did go get a guy, Davis Heinzen, to start left tackle. Not really sure whether he can really fill that Big Ten role. So that is a bit of a question mark. As long as everyone's healthy, we should be okay. The problem is if a couple guys go down, the depth, there's a lot of good youth in that room, but there's not a lot of experience yet. So if there's injuries, that could pose a problem. And of course, as you know, the offensive line kind of runs everything when it comes to the offense. If that unit's not functioning, we're going to have some real problems. But there is still confidence that we're going to be a much better offense than we were last year, simply because our scheme is better. It fits the players better. And we've got a quarterback, and we've got a backup quarterback just in case Billy Edwards goes down. We've got Danny O'Neill out of San Diego State. He's got a few years of eligibility left. So way, way better on the quarterback room. And that kind of gives everyone confidence that the offense should be able to produce a lot more than it did last year.
Flipping it over to the other side of the ball, let's start up front on the defensive line. It looks like a couple transfers there as well.
Yeah, so the big thing that Luke Fickell said after last season was that, and every Badger fan agrees, we had to get bigger up front. Our defensive line, our defense over the last 10, 15 years has been something that has been really, really strong for us. Ability to stop the run, side to side, sideline to sideline speed. That has really gone away the last couple of years. Mike Tressel's our defensive coordinator. There are question marks about whether or not he can really be the guy, but we got bigger. We got guys like Charles Perkins from UT Martin. We got guys like JVR Suggs from LSU. We're returning some size there. And we ran a lot of 2-4-5 last year, and that just is really ineffective at stopping the run. So now it looks like we're going to be playing a little bit more 3-down linemen, 4-down linemen at times, with some bigger defensive ends like Corey Walker and Mason Reiger out of Louisville. So we had just abomination of numbers for tackles for loss and sacks last year. It was horrific. I think we were the lowest in the country for TFLs. So that should hopefully change because we've definitely got a lot bigger. I mean, Charles Perkins is 315 pounds now. So there's a lot more beef up front, which should really allow our linebackers, which is kind of one of the more of the strengths of our defense, to do what they need to do. So will they hold up? We don't know. Last year we got eaten alive on the ground, and if that happens again, we got beat 42-10 against Iowa. That's unacceptable for Badger fans, and it can never happen. And they ran the ball all over us. That is specifically what Luke Fickell was targeting, and Luke Fickell tried to change. And I think he's done it, but hopefully we can see it on the field.
Talking about those linebackers, you had one who transferred in last year who Ohio State wanted bad in recruiting. He ended up going to USC, ends up going over to Wisconsin. Of course, I'm talking about Curtis Tackett. He's one of several, I'm assuming, guys here for Wisconsin that you want to talk about. But I think if there's going to be a guy who takes a big step this year, I think it's going to be Curtis Tackett.
Yeah. Tackett Curtis is going to be as a huge piece of our team right now, and his partner on the inside is Christian Allegro, who I think is going to be first team All Big Ten at the end of the season. He has got lightning fast speed, very very good tackler. He's kind of the guy that Badger fans put a lot. Badgers have put a lot of linebackers into the NFL. There's a lot of good linebacker talent. Certainly not as many as your team has. I understand that, but we've got a lot in there. And Christian Allegro is kind of the next one in line. So you put Allegro and Curtis, and you're right. Curtis has definitely taken a step in the spring. He looked fantastic. So you put Tackett and Christian next to each other, and there's a lot of power there, a lot of beef there. We've got some depth behind them with some new guys coming up. The question is really going to be the pass rush of our outside linebackers. Can we get that going? Like I mentioned, Mason Reiger and Corey Walker. We've got Daryl Peterson coming back. There's definitely some talent there. Sebastian Cheeks, who did okay, but at the end of the day, it starts with the middle linebackers and our ability to stop the run. And I think we've got that, because you saw flashes from Tackett Curtis at the end of last year, but there were times where it looked like he hadn't really picked things up. But I think that's changed. And those two guys specifically are really the bedrock of our defense, because they're two of the best players we have. And if they're not performing well, we're going to struggle. That's why it was so important to get bigger up front, so we can allow Christian Allegro and Tackett Curtis to do what they need to do behind them.
Indeed. All right, let's talk about secondary. Let's see how they're going to hold up. Let's start with the corners first.
Yeah, so Ricardo Hallman returns, which is great. I mean, he's definitely our best cornerback. Nizer Forkerin is a guy that played with us last year, who we had hoped, and it's still not 100% out of question, that he applied for another year of eligibility because of time in junior college and all that stuff. I think it's probably going to get denied, which means then we've got to turn to some other guys like Jameer Latimer, transfer in Deani Hill from Miami, potentially some freshmen, some young guys like Emilio Agard. So there's a little bit of a question mark at the second cornerback spot. But as far as the slot and the safeties, we should be pretty good there. I mean, Hunter Wohler last year, he was the guy. He was one of the best safeties we've had in a while. He is now gone. We still have Preston Zachman at the safety position, and Austin Brown, who got a lot of time as a nickel type corner, will be back there again. So we feel pretty good about the secondary. But if Nizer Forkerin can come back, that allows us to start two very experienced guys up back there, and then we can put our youth and some of our new guys in the depth. But if one of those guys is forced to start, that puts us in a little bit of a bind in the corner position. But again, I still think we're going to be okay. But honestly, man, it just all starts up front. And look, if we can get some pass rush and we can actually force quarterbacks to move quickly with the ball and get some sacks, that's really going to help our secondary out. We've got talent back there. But if we don't get pressure on the quarterback, I don't care how good your secondary is, you can't do anything, especially against the schedule that we've got.
Is there any idea of that when the NCAA will make a ruling on Nizer?
Yeah, so we're kind of up in the air on that. There was some initial indication that it wasn't going to, it's not going to get approved. That's basically what we're all assuming. It's not going to get approved, but it's not finalized yet, and I'm not sure when that's going to be finalized. But for all intents and purposes, we're all pretty much assuming that it's not going to happen, and we're going to have to start, Latimer or Hill or someone at the second corner. But again, I think there is still enough depth that we should be okay there.
And safeties. Let's talk about the nickel and the safeties.
Yeah, so I mentioned Preston Zachman and Austin Brown. Those guys are going to be starting up there. We also brought in Matt Young, transfer. So there's a little bit of concern at safety, but for the most part, like we've got good tacklers, we've got speedsters back there. The one thing that Luke Fickell has prioritized over anything else in his transfer portal recruits is athleticism. And we like that. I mean, that's not something that Paul Chris did really well with us. So all the guys that he brought in, whether it's Trainer, Young, things like that, there's going to be a lot of athleticism. We also have freshmen who could potentially see the field next year. Luke Emmerich at safety, and there's some other guys that we feel like could potentially get in there. I think overall defensively, though, there's solid depth. But if the guys up front can do their job, we're going to be in a fine shape. And unlike last year coming in, and unlike the year before, we actually feel like we have the talent and the size to do that. And then even last year, we felt good about our secondary, felt good about our linebackers, but the line couldn't do what they needed to do. So it made us look like we didn't have that. But this year, hopefully, we do.
All right, Rajeev, let's open up this can of worms and look at this gauntlet. My gosh, did the Big Ten really hand you, or whoever the schedule maker was, whether it was an individual or the computers, man? Wisconsin, oh my God, that is a schedule, buddy. Now, you open up the season at home on a Thursday night against Miami, Ohio. We're going to chalk that up as a dub. You come back the following week against Middle Tennessee State on a 4 o'clock game on FS1. We're going to chalk that one up as a dub. Then you're going to wrap up non-conference by going to Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, with a noon kicker on ABC or ESPN. I don't foresee that one going very well for you guys. That is a pissed off Alabama team.
Yeah, I just interviewed an Alabama guy, a podcast host, to talk about that game specifically. And yeah, they're out for a lot of revenge this year. You know, they lost to Vanderbilt, Tennessee, and stuff. So yeah, that's going to be. Look, I mean, with the new Big Ten, and it's obviously the 9-game schedule and the way the playoff system works. Teams, this game was scheduled a long time ago when it was like, we really want to beef up our non-con, but. This game, it sucks that we've got this on our schedule. Like, we're not winning this game. I know there's Badger fans that believe we can do something. I'm not one of those guys. I'm fairly realistic about what's going to happen in Alabama. Even though they don't have Milroe, they've got Ty Simpson. They're still going to be fine. We just need to take those first 2 weeks and show that, look, it's all about, can Billy Edwards actually fold into this offense? What is that going to look like? Is our offensive line going to hold up? Can we run? We need to dominate the first 2 weeks. And as I said on a show I did yesterday, just compete with Alabama for most of the game. Like, every time we play Ohio State fairly well, we play Oregon fairly well. We just need to compete like that. We're not going to win that game, but I also don't want to get thumped by 40 points because that's going to really set us back. And we just need to play as well as we can and give it our effort, because after that, the schedule doesn't get any easier.
September 20th, you do get the worst team in the Big Ten this year, in my opinion, in Maryland at home. That should be a win. Maryland, Purdue, they're going to battle for the bottom there. Then you get your first bye, and then
the brutal begins, October,
dude.
The brutal October. We've talked about this brutal
crap.
month. I mean, you really couldn't script it any worse. I mean, you go at Michigan, home to Iowa, home against you guys, Ohio State, and then at Oregon. It's going to be very difficult. But look, if we can be 3-1, which we should be after the first, we're looking at it in 4-game sets, right? The first 4, let's just be 3-1, and in the second 4, honestly, 1-3 would be fantastic. Which, of course, beating Iowa, which is one of our rivals, would be great. A lot of people, I actually think Michigan is beatable. I don't know. I mean, obviously, you know Michigan a lot more than I do, just because they're your rivals. But
don't ask us last 4 years.
I mean, yeah, right. But it's the question is, can Underwood really be who everyone thinks he's going to be,
right?
Or will it be like a Raiola type of a freshman year where it's going to be up and down, which is likely. But they've still got a dominant defense. They're still going to be good. I do think we can win 1 or 2 of those games. I believe we will be 1-3 in that month, or potentially 2. We're not beating Ohio State. We're not beating Oregon. That's a simple, flat out. It's not going to happen. Yes, Ohio State comes to Madison, and yes, it's going to be really exciting. But being realistic, that's just not a game that we're really equipped to win yet. Unless Billy Edwards is shockingly amazing, it's likely going to be a loss. So I think in that middle stretch, we just have to focus on getting 1, maybe getting 2.
What's going to be really interesting, Rajeev, is if the NCAA delivers some form of punishment to the University of Scum, as I like to call them, that would cause them to really their season to tailspin, and that'll be intriguing. So we'll have to see what that looks like. I think the NCAA is going to deliver something right before Big Ten Media Days. I just feel like it's what they're going to do to them, but we'll see how severe it is and what kind of outcome it will have for them on their season.
I'm going to be at Big
Then,
Ten Media Days, and I'm excited to see that happen. Hopefully.
yeah, yeah, maybe I can kind of send you a couple good questions to ruffle Sharon Moore's feathers. I could help you with that one. Uh, November, after you get the second bye, it's the next four, and this is really interesting because you got two big former Big Ten West foes on there. Illinois is the Big Ten darling this year. They're the supposedly the Indiana of the Big Ten this year. You have Indiana, who was the Indiana of the Big Ten last year. How good are they going to be this year? Can Kurt Signetti run it back successfully? You have a Washington team who's in year two of Coach Fish. And then you've got, you travel up there to Minnesota, you with revenge on your mind. I'm intrigued to get your perspective on these last four on your schedule.
This is really where the season is going to be made, and this is where our ceiling and floor can be met. It's really going to be about these four. I think the first three and the first set of four, the second set of four, pretty much 3-1, 1-3. That's probably the best we're going to do at that point. We're likely looking at being 4-4 or something like that. However, the last set is really going to be the true tale of the season. Washington at home, we've got to win that game because that's one of these things where, look, I know that we're not the Wisconsin of old, but we need to win that game, and I think we will. Minnesota, that's just a game that Badger fans cannot lose again. It's like, you guys obviously know the pain that you felt losing to Michigan, but at least you got the national title to celebrate. But yeah, that can't happen. It's going to be a tough one. It's those middle two that are the most intriguing. I for one am just over hearing about Indiana. I can't. They feel like I feel like Indiana fans just think like they're the best. They're all of a sudden this amazing college football program. I'm always like, just calm down, okay? We've got 10 times more wins than you in the last 30 years. Anyway, they're still going to be tough, and it's on the road. Illinois is another team where I know a lot of people. You mentioned a lot of people are really excited about them. I like Luke Altmaier. He's a quarterback that I would love to have on my team, and they've got a lot of weapons. They took a defensive lineman from us. But I think that this is kind of like that. Those are 50-50 games. I know some people will say they're really not, but we're home against Illinois. We're at Indiana, a team that, frankly, I think will regress a little bit in the year after their big playoff run. I could definitely see a scenario here where we can win 2 to 3 of these games. I don't think we're going to win all 4. If we do, then that's a fantastic season. But it's unlikely. I think probably we're going to lose at Indiana just because they still have good weapons. It's on the road. They're hyped up. They're excited. But I think we surprise people and we beat Illinois at home. I think we can beat Washington, and Minnesota is kind of that toss-up game where hopefully we can get it done. But this is going to really be the microcosm of the season. These 4 games. What can we do in November? Do we end up missing a bowl game again, which would kill us? Or do we end up finishing with 7 or 8 wins, which would be a real success for us?
Yeah. So if I hear you right, the floor would look like something like 4-8, and the ceiling would look like something like 8-4.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I think it is. I mean, I think 4 would be a pretty low floor. It's going to obviously mean that we don't win any of those. Either we don't win any of the middle games, and then I think we're going to be 3-1 after the first 4. That would be pretty shocking if we weren't. But the question is, can we steal some wins along the way? So yeah, 4 as a solid floor, but I think 8 is our ceiling. And I think that 6 or 7 is probably the most likely, which puts us back in a bowl game, which is good. It puts us in the right direction because let me tell you, the 2026 schedule, finally the Big Ten just gives us a little more calm. And then that's the season that Badger fans are kind of eyeing is like, we've got to have a lot of Luke Fickell's recruits from the 24 class kind of maturing and really being ready to play. You couple that with an easier schedule and you have the ability for Wisconsin to potentially make a run into the playoff, depending on how we do. But we've got to progress this year, and that's going to mean not hitting that floor. We've got to get a little bit closer to that ceiling.
That is Intriguing, man. That is to get your perspective on that is very interesting. Um, yeah, dude. When we started looking at all the schedules back after the season ended, this is February, March type of time, and I looked at that gauntlet that you guys had to run through. I went, what did Luke Fickle say or do to the Big Ten, man? My gosh, that it was that's ridiculous. But yeah, if you guys can run 6 or more wins off of this thing, Luke Fickle, Coach of the Year, man. It's
I mean,
like,
and listen, and there's really a path. Like, and you can look at it again. You can see that you can easily see 4 wins in that for those first 8. I really believe we're going to have 4, at least 4. And then I think Washington, Minnesota, Illinois, Indiana. We could win 3 of those games. I'm not saying we will, but 7 to 8 wins is definitely doable. 7 wins is really doable. And you finish 7-5 in this season with that schedule, that is really gonna calm everyone's nerves a little bit in Madison, especially if we run the ball properly. Jeff Grimes' offense works, which we really think it will. Billy Edwards will be gone after this year, but then we've got young quarterback, really good recruit in Carter Smith and Ryan Hopkins, and we've got Danny O'Neal backing up Edwards this year. So there's quarterbacks that will return next year. That's really what we want. We just need to see progression. And that means being able to stop the run a little bit, not getting destroyed by your rivals, winning back the axe. And as I always say, just try to compete in some of these big games. We're not beating Ohio State. We know that. We're not beating Alabama. We know that. We're not going to beat Oregon. We know that. But that doesn't mean that we have to get smashed in those games. We just have to be able to show that we can compete like Wisconsin always has. And it's tough for Badger fans right now because, we were that program that was at the top for many years that, we had, and if 5 years ago, we could say for the last 10 years, we had like the most in the top 5 in the country wins of any team. It was Alabama, Ohio State, us, and a few others, Clemson. But now we've really fallen back. And it's tough for us to deal with that. It's tough to see Minnesota barking, talking like they're really good. Indiana all of a sudden acting like they're good at football, and we've kind of been left behind. And the conference is brutal now. It's an 18-team gauntlet with a lot of really good teams, and it's hard to separate yourself out of that middle big junk. And that's where we are. We really need to find our way back to the top. This is a very, very important year for Luke Fickell to really calm the nerves, get more money, NIL back into the program. Like there's a lot of fans that are they're kind of walking on eggshells. There's a lot of trepidation with this program right now. But this is a year that we can make a statement. Go get 7 wins, get us back into a bowl game, get us moving in the right direction. Then all of a sudden you look ahead to 26 and we feel a little better about our chances moving forward.
excellent. Maybe there's a Wisconsin fan who stumbled on this who hasn't heard of the Bucky Report, or there's some Buckeyes who really loved what they heard there. Rajeev, tell everybody where they can find the Bucky Report at.
Yeah, so we're on YouTube, all everywhere you get your podcasts. We're out there. Also, you can follow the Bucky Report on Twitter, or myself, Rajeev Badgers on Twitter. My co-host, he's at Bucky Report JJ on Twitter. Justin Julka. But yeah, we record every Sunday live, usually in the evenings on Sunday, so nighttime Eastern. And then we just launched a Know Your Foe series that we just finished our 3rd one. We're doing Maryland next week. And we're kind of going through the entire schedule, talking week by week. They're shorter 20-minute episodes. Our weekend ones are about an hour that we do. But yeah, great to be with you as always. And yeah, but definitely excited about the season.
If all else fails, head over to thecollegehuddle.com, scroll over the Big Ten, go down to Wisconsin. There you'll find the Bucky Report. It's got all of their social media links as well as YouTube, etc. And you can do it that way as well. Rajeev, thank you so much for hopping in, man. We look forward to following you this season. There'll be a lot of Buckeye fans pulling for you for every single game except for one, of course.
Yeah, for sure.
But we want to see Luke Fickell succeed, man. He's one of us, so we absolutely will be pulling for him, Rajeev. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate you hopping on here, buddy. And we want to thank Rajeev for coming on here at the OHIO podcast for our Wisconsin preview. As I promised, good dude, very knowledgeable, great interview. One of my favorite interviews so far in these previews. He's always a good interview, Chris. Great guy.
Yeah.
All right, here we go, Chris. It's your turn and my turn now to put our money where our mouth is. I am definitely afraid for Luke Fickell. I think he's, as Rajeev pointed out, all he has to do is hold serve. Given that contract, given their easy schedule next year, they're everything is pointing for them to make the playoff next year. That's what they're building for. That's what they've accepted as a fan base. This year's just kind of stay healthy, build the program, get these kids who are juniors and sophomores the experience they need, and then next year in 2026 the Badgers are all in on getting to the CFP. But let's go ahead and take a look at where they're at right now heading into 2025. So here we go. Let's take a look at it. All right, Chris, let's take a look at this 2025 schedule together. Miami of Ohio, Middle Tennessee State, both at home. I got them both winning that game.
Those are both wins, absolutely.
At Bama, let's be honest, that's a loss.
Yeah, but the good news is, Eric, I think they get a rebound the next week because Maryland is just god awful.
Yeah, yeah, they are. And as Rajeev said, listen, they're looking at this season in three different 4 game stints. This next stint is brutal. At Michigan, home against Iowa, home against Ohio State, at Oregon. If they can pull off one win here, they are happy. That's all they're looking to do is win one of these.
And I don't see it anywhere.
Maybe
Maybe
Iowa?
I was thinking maybe against the scum, but
Well, and
um,
that's interesting. We don't know where they're going to be if they're sanctioned or
exactly.
not. So, and then in November, home against Washington, at Indiana, home against Illinois, at Minnesota.
I like them to beat Washington, honestly. I think
Because
the
it's
home game
home.
against Washington is their best opportunity for a win in that stretch because
I
you got to go
agree.
to Illinois. Or, I'm sorry, you get Illinois at your house, but Illinois is a pretty good team.
Yeah,
Uh, and then you got to go to Indiana, you got to go to Minnesota. I think both those are tough games. I think Washington's the best opportunity. So that's I've got Maryland and Washington as their 2 conference wins, and the middle Miami of Ohio and Middle Tennessee State to round out the wins.
I'm with you. I'm with you exactly. 4-8, 2-7 overall is where I've got them. We both say take the under. If
Hammer
Rajiv's
the
right, if
under.
Rajiv's right, and they go 5-7, but it looks okay, then Luke's gonna be fine. If they go 6-6, they're happy. They're going back to a bowl game.
If they go 6-6, I got
Well,
to tell you, there's some problems on a few of the teams in the Big Ten that we thought were better than that. I just I think for them to go 6-6, I mean, unless it's Indiana and Minnesota, those are the two probably most winnable games I think after the ones we chose. But they're both on the road, which is so tough, Eric.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. No doubt about it, guys. No doubt about it. If you are a Wisconsin fan, we hope you enjoyed this preview. We appreciate you taking the time to watch it, digest it all. Please let us know what you think in the comment section below. We love to know what people think, whether you like it, disagree, whatever. It's okay to tell us whatever you want to say. Sometimes we respond, sometimes we don't. If it's trolly, if it's pretty positive, we usually take the time to say thank you. So um, again, if you're a Wisconsin fan, thank you for taking time to watch it. If you're a Buckeye fan, what do you think, man? Is Luke Fickell possibly in trouble here? Wisconsin fans are kind of saying, as long as he stays competitive, we're okay, because everything's pointing for them in 2026.
I hope that's right because ultimately I'm a Fickle fan. I'd love to see him succeed no matter where it's at. But
You saying I'm a Fickle fan has two meanings.
and both are true.
Indeed, they are. Indeed, they are. All right, folks. Thank you so much for watching. We will have 2 more previews for you again next week when I get back from vacation. As you're watching this was recorded a week before. I'm actually on the beach right now. So, having a grand old time with my wife celebrating 10 years of marriage, marital bliss. So, enjoy this. But when I get back, We're going to dive into 2 more Big Ten teams. We will have those for you prepped and ready to go again next week, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Again, like the video, share it if you must. Please subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and let us know what you think about what we think down in the comments section below. Till next time, be kind to one another. I owe someone's OH. Sing Carmen, Ohio with all your heart. Chris, you know what to do. OH.
IO.
Go Bucks.